Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I am your host, Alan Moore, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us today for episode 4 of our launch week. So this week has already featured Michael Kitces, Carl Richards, and Sophia Berra, and we have some other very, very exciting speakers coming up throughout the rest of the week, including Mark Maurer of Low Load Insurance Services, Eric Roberge of Beyond Your Hammock, and Jake Keebler of Blue Stem Financial Advisors. But today, I am really excited because today we are featuring Jeff Rose. Jeff is an incredibly popular personal finance blogger, author, and of course, financial planner. So Jeff has built a really successful financial planning practice and has boosted his marketing efforts using his blog, goodfinancialsense.com. So you are going to hear me turn a little fanboy in the beginning of this episode because honestly, I have followed Jeff since I got into financial planning. It was a really, really fun interview to kind of get a look under the hood of his background and kind of how he got into financial planning and how he's using social media and a blog to really boost his financial planning firm. So it was a ton of fun listening to how he broke away from a broker-dealer, started his own firm, started his blog, and some of the pivots he's made over time and some of the mistakes he's made and how he's recovered from those mistakes. Before we kick off the interview, though, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor of Launch Week, Low Load Insurance Services. Low Load helps fee-only advisors with life insurance, disability insurance, annuities, long-term care, and more. So you can check them out at llis.com or check out episode 5 for an in-depth interview with Mark Maurer, the CEO of LLIS. So without further ado, here is my interview with Jeff Rose. All right, I'm thrilled to welcome Jeff Rose on to XYPN Radio. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today, Jeff.
Yeah, excited to be here.
So I am really excited to have you on the show because honestly, I have been watching you for years via social media, not to make that sound too creepy, ever since I got into the profession, and honestly have looked up to you as someone who looked like they were really enjoying doing what they were doing. Which is something that I think a lot of folks miss out on, is just being really passionate about what they do and being really good at it. So I'm excited for kind of this wide range interview just to talk about kind of how you got to this point and what you're working on today and kind of what we can expect to see going forward, because I'm sure you have some interesting stuff in the pipeline.
Always keep it fun.
So tell us just a little bit about your background and kind of how you became the, we'll call the content marketing powerhouse that you are today.
Sure. So I've been a financial advisor for 12 years now. Got started with A.G. Edwards when they were still around, and they got bought out by Wachovia and then Wells Fargo. And then we left. I say we, there was me and 3 others, and we co-founded a independent firm. We went with LPL Financial, and I did that for 4 years. And then somewhere along the way, I started my blog, goodfinancialsense.com. And I was a Series 7 registered rep, and we all, if anybody has a Series 7 license and they're familiar with blogging and compliance, I've been through that. And I went dealing with compliance for 2.5 years and looking at all these other RIAs and just drooling over, just extreme jealousy of how they can publish content when they want to publish content. And I had to go through this whole chain of command through compliance, and just frustrating. And I just asked myself, I had success with it. And I asked myself, if I didn't have this box of compliance that's just suffocating me, how much more successful would my blog be? So I just started doing the research and what it took to start my own RIA. And I did that back in 2011, formed Alliance Wealth Management. And it has been, I have a lot of good business decisions. That definitely might be the most recent, best one I've done, because not only did the practice grow, but the blog, really took off after that.
Compliance, coming from the BD world, I hear compliance is one of the number one reasons people want to shift over to the RIA world. And for listeners that may not be fully up to speed on the way that all works, basically BDs are regulated by FINRA and RIAs are regulated by the SEC. And I don't know, we could probably do an entire episode just based on just about the rules of all of this, but RIA regulations and around content are just so much simpler. And I guess that we just don't have the, as you said, the chain of command on compliance that the BDs have.
The biggest thing for me, this was like the eye-opening, was I'm a huge fan of the Roth IRA, especially for young investors, and I've wrote a lot of content on it. But I remember specifically being told that I couldn't make the comment on my blog that I love the Roth IRA.
Oh, no.
I was not allowed to say those words or type those words. I love the Roth IRA. I could say that, if you're a young investor, you should consider the Roth IRA. It's part of your retirement strategy. I could say that, but I could not say that I love the Roth IRA, and that just, I don't know what it is. It just irked me to no end, and I knew I was done. That's
funny. What an interesting thing for them to decide that you can't say.
Yeah, I know.
So let's talk a little bit about your RIA today. So you started in 2011. Did all of your partners come with you when you shifted from LPL to starting your RIA?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. So as I mentioned, there was 3 of us. There was 4 of us total. We call it the Founding Fathers. 3 other advisors joined us as well. So we had an office of 7 people, all independent reps through LPL. I'm the only one that had any interest of breaking off and doing the RIA. And I'm actually in the exact same office that I was. I had to, basically take my name off the website, start a new business, new phone number, new business cards, but new phone number, if I didn't say that already. So I actually was able to stay in the exact same office that I was, which is, I didn't know that could be done, but once you start making inquiries and talking to other RIAs, you'll find out that it can be done. I had to get permission from LPL if they would allow me to stay. LPL has an RIA channel, so I was able to just basically transition from the independent BD side of LPL and independent registered rep side to their RIA side. And that's what I did. Initially, well, I won't say that. Initially, I had to push a little bit because I got some resistance, but I was able to do it, and that's kind of where I'm at today.
That's great. That sounds like once you got the information, it was a lot simpler than probably than it felt like it was going to be, because that's a pretty seamless transition, it sounds like.
It was, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people don't realize, and I think we all run into this where, oh my gosh, that just sounds like a lot of work, so I'm not even going to make that first initial phone call to find out. And once I made a few phone calls, talked to somebody at LPL, I realized, wow, okay, this actually can be done, and just started doing the framework. And there was a lot more paperwork involved than I thought. It is almost repapering your clients, but they had the same account number, so it still was seamless for the most part, but still a lot of paperwork.
Fair enough. Yeah, compliance is just such a big, scary unknown, and I think it's because there's not a lot of content online, about compliance, particularly for RIAs or for BDs. And yet, once you get into it, my experience has been compliance is not that big of a deal, but it is kind of scary. And when you're looking at transitioning from one to the other, just all the changes and just kind of not knowing what you don't know. So it's good to know that especially LPL has that kind of not easy, but that transition that's kind of outlined for you.
Yeah.
So how many clients are you currently working with?
I think last time I checked, I always base it off households, and I think we're about 120 to 140 households in total.
So you say we. So what makes up your firm?
Yeah, so here recently, I have one office manager that's dedicated, purely to my firm. I just brought on an advisor earlier this year. He's the second advisor I've had. The first one was with me for about a year and a half. Didn't quite work out. He ended up going on to something else, and then I brought someone new in. And so I've got one advisor underneath me and then one full-time staff.
Well, that's amazing, considering we're going to talk more about all the different things you're doing. I expected for you to have an army of advisors backing you and staff and assistants and all of that.
Lean and mean, baby. Lean and mean.
That is incredible. I need to come down and spend a day in your office just to see how you do what you do, because that's incredible. So again, we're going to talk a little bit more about kind of all the different marketing channels, but have you found a specific niche market that you're really targeting? Because we hear that a lot from marketers these days. So are you really targeting a specific type of client, or are you finding that your content is reaching a specific type of client?
I don't really have a niche, but we have a unique process that how we bring people as clients. And this is what we call our financial success blueprint. It's just our 5-step process. And anyone that is interested in working with us, they have to go through this process. And by going through that process, that's when we'll find out if they're going to be a good fit. And they'll find out if they're a good fit. We have all that on our website so they can actually see it. We always schedule a free chat, usually a 15, 20-minute phone call. We're just talk about what they're looking for, talk about our process, and we'll find out if we're going to be a good fit for each other. But that typically leans towards, that 55 to 65-year-old demographic that ends up being a bulk of our clientele.
So are you finding that because you're doing a lot of content marketing, are you finding that those clients are coming to you that don't live in your immediate area? Because you're in a pretty small town, correct?
Yeah, so my office, I live in a college town, population about 25,000. It's Carbondale, Illinois. The actual town I live in is like 6,000, just to give you a rough idea. Closest airport's 2 hours from us. We have a Chili's and an Applebee's, and that's
so you've really made it.
Yeah, we've made it. So a lot of my clients are local. When I started the blog, I would get clients that would find me, some out of state. I do have one currently in Japan. My only international client. She's in the Air Force. But I would get people from out of state that would find me. But a lot of people were local, and this is probably what we'll talk to. But as the blog grew, it also became its own entity as far as its own revenue producing entity, and it's something I really focused on for a number of years, where my practice was growing through client referrals, through some strategic alliances with a CPA and an elder law attorney in the area. So I was getting, I was building a client base, but I didn't really have if people found my blog, if they really wanted to work with me, they can go to my contact page and contact me, whatever. But I didn't make it really easy for people to work with me. So just about, I think it was like 9 months ago, maybe a year, is when I didn't even have a work with me page on my blog. When I redid my blog, my redesign, I think a couple years ago, I didn't even have a work with me page, and that was intentional because if people really wanted to work with me, I was going to make it. They had to hunt to find me. We can talk about that, but I didn't put a work with me page. I then added our process, our financial success blueprint page on there, and ever since I did that, then that's when the inquiry started to come. And through that page, they can schedule a free chat. It's all done online. So with that, we'll have probably 4 to 5 free chats a week for people that are possibly interested in working with us.
And how many of those are you saying, or do you think are qualified or really interested in going through that full process with you out of the 4 to 5 a week?
I'd say probably 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5, because we'll have young people. And this is kind of where I feel like giving back. For me growing up, my parents didn't have any investments. They didn't know to teach me how to invest. I didn't know what a Roth IRA was until I basically became a financial advisor. I didn't even learn that in college. So I know there's that younger demographic that are clueless like I was. And so, if I could spend 15 minutes on the phone and point them in the right direction and get them set up with, like an online brokerage, get a Roth IRA going, like I'm more than happy to do that. Or, one of my advisors in the office, he'll take the time to do that. Most of them, but if they've been to they see our process page, the ones that do go through it, turns out to typically be pretty good clients.
That's incredible, considering most advisors, especially in the independent space, are really excited if they're bringing on one new client a month. That's the common growth goal I hear, and here you're talking about potentially one qualified prospect a week. And
this is all recent. This wasn't how it used to be. It's amazing what you do when you basically show people what it looks like to work with you. And that's basically what we've outlined on the blog. It's right there, so you can see it. So they already have an idea what it looks like, and you say, hey, yeah, I want to check out this blueprint, whatever this thing is. I'm like, all right, perfect. Well, here's how it works, in case they have any questions.
Because financial planning is a really tough service to sell. People don't know what they're getting until they've bought it. It's not like when you buy a house and you can go kick it before you buy it. You buy it on faith. And so that's a really great point that you're making, that you've kind of shown prospective clients what you do for them before you actually do it, so they kind of know what they're getting before they even call you.
Correct.
All right, so we talked a little bit about that, or you mentioned that you have goodfinancialsense.com, which is a fabulous blog. If listeners have not been following that, definitely get on the newsletter list and get the RSS feed there. But you have a couple of other blogs as well, correct? So you have a few different pieces along with the podcast. So can you just talk about kind of your different content mediums that you're using to reach your blog audience as well as prospective clients?
Yeah, so just last year, I decided to launch. Well, I've had lifeinsurance.jeff.com, and that's just a life insurance resource for anybody that's looking for term life insurance or just have questions about life insurance and has certain medical conditions. I've got, I don't know how many posts, but a lot of content, specifically on life insurance. With that, I also created Retirement by Jeff and Annuities by Jeff. And the thought behind that is with Good Financial Sense, there's over, I think, 1,200 articles on that site right now. And it's just content's buried, in there. So I created those other silos to where if somebody wants specific annuity information or specific retirement information, those sites exist where it's a little bit easier to find because it's all around that certain topic. They don't get nearly the traffic that Good Financial Sense does, but at least my thought there was to create a silo where people can get specific information and make it more easily found.
All right, 1,200 articles. Let's go back to that number because that is incredible. I struggle to get one a week or one every 2 weeks. So you've been blogging. So you went independent in 2011. When did you actually start blogging on Good Financial Sense?
July 2008.
2008. So 7 years, 1,200 posts. Where's that content?
1325 to be exact.
Oh my goodness. That is incredible. You're a machine. What are you writing all of that content, or do you have ghostwriters? Do you have people submitting content? I mean, where's all that coming from?
Back in the day, I would accept guest posts pretty frequently, and the thought process there was, I want more content. I've scaled back a lot to where a lot of the content I do now is much longer form. Very seldom, actually, no. Right now I never publish anything under 1,000 words, and typically 1,200 is what I shoot for. A lot of my longer posts will be 2,000, 3,000. Even have a few that have surpassed the 4,000 word count. And a few different areas how I do that. One of my huge saving grace is Mobile Assistant. That, which is the mobile transcription service company. You can call into Mobile Assistant and you can talk as long as you want. And, within 24 hours, depending how quick they are, you'll get a typed up email back, or it's also on a Word document, everything you just dictated. So I've wrote so many different blog posts using that. Now, the one thing and that's one of my strengths, like I can talk an idea out and turn that into a blog post. Now, what isn't my strength is editing. I hate editing. I'm a horrible proofreader. My wife gets on to me all the time. I've published so much stuff. She's like, do you even read your own stuff? So I used to edit myself, but oftentimes I would get like the content, like the blog post would be 80% done, and the final 20% would just sit there because it was just draining me to go there and edit it. So I now have an editor that will basically take that, edit it down, and just spruce it up and make it read and sound good. And that was like the missing link, and that's how I'm able to publish as much as I do. It's just Mobile Assistant and having an editor go in and just clean it up and finish it for me.
That's great. I've never used Mobile Assistant. I've used rev.com and have kind of a similar system of get back the transcription and see what you can turn that into. And I think that points to a really important piece that we hear a lot about content marketing, and I think we end up I call it shoulding on ourselves that we should be blogging, we should be doing all this stuff, but some of us just aren't great writers. But some of us are better through auditory or through, talking, and that's me. I would prefer to talk than write. Sounds like that's a little bit of you as well. And so it's okay to embrace that and just, leverage that. It doesn't mean you have to write just because it's not your strength. You can, mix it up and do some different things.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of people don't realize that because, maybe you're good at podcasting or you have a good thought leadership. You can take any type of content and find something to have it transcribed and turn that into written content. Dan Sullivan, who's the CEO of Strategic Coach, and I've been in that program for 4 years, one of my favorite things he said was, you don't have to be a good writer to be an author.
Oh, that's such a good line.
And I think a lot of times people take that don't realize that. I mean, there's so many ways that you can write nowadays that don't even require you to write. It's a beautiful thing.
We actually have a marketing manager at XYPN Network, and she will take recordings that I've done, 5 to 6 minutes of just me kind of riffing about a random topic, and it's really disjointed, and she turns it into a beautiful blog post. And it's really funny that sometimes I read her words and I just think, you are so much better at what you do than I am. I mean, so much better that It's amazing when you get people and you realize that that's not our strength. And it's okay to hire people that it is their strength, because a lot of the pieces that actually are our strength are their weaknesses. And so that's okay to go out there and find those folks.
But the exciting thing, though, is that, obviously she couldn't do that from scratch, because everything that you dictated, that is your experience. Those are your thoughts, those are your beliefs. And advisors, we have so much experience dealing with client issues that, people need to know. And not every interaction, but I have so many interactions with either existing clients or potential clients or blog readers that, I want to share this stuff because I think it's valuable information that people need to know. And for me not to figure out a way to put that out there, if I was just going to, I'm going to make time, I'm going to write it, which I would never get done. But, I can call it in, dictate it, have my editor, like you have your editor, make it into content that gets shared and helps people.
Absolutely. And like you said, those are stories that come out of client meetings. That's where a lot of my content comes from, or just conversations, and you have a conversation and you think, well, if you had this question, it's probably a lot of other people that have this question, or
exactly,
just a situation where you think this is something that we really powerful to share and that other people would really care about. And then, figuring out what's your way of sharing that content. For us, it's, recording ourselves talking and having an editor. Some people may be great at writing. There may be other mediums out there that, whether it's Carl Richards can draw it, I guess we all have a way of doing that. So it sounds like a lot of your content comes from those conversations that you're having with clients. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. And then a lot of it, when people sign up for my newsletter, I like to engage and just ask open-end questions. And a lot of times people will reply, to those emails, and, that gives me content. I have a way for people to ask questions on my site. They can go to goodfinancialsense.com/ask, and I try to get back to them within 24 to 48 hours. But just through that ability, I get people all the time. And I'm like, all right, well, this is a question that most likely other people are going to have. So, that turns into content as well.
I have found that when you start looking for content, you find it everywhere. Advisors will say all the time, well, I don't know what I'm going to write about. And it's kind of once you start looking for it and just thinking through, what are the questions you're frequently getting and that sort of thing, you'll just find content in every conversation.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Every time I hear people say that, I just don't know what I'm going to write about. I don't. As much content as I put out, I don't have enough time to write about everything I want to write about. I've got a Google Doc that is, I want to say, at least 25, if not 50 ideas that I have, just waiting to be, put out in the world at some point in time.
Oh, sure. So before we started the recording, we were talking a little bit about how you leverage content. So tell me a little bit about, you were saying kind of just for the listener about, turning blog posts into other content and just how you leverage that. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. So I think it was a couple years ago when I really started focusing on, working on SEO and getting multi-pronged content out there. But a lot of my more popular posts, I recognize when just by looking into Google Analytics, searching, looking in there and seeing what posts are getting the most traffic. One thing I noticed, kind of a common thread, was they all were longer form content. They all had had a video with it, because I really got into YouTube and just doing videos. And they also had really good images. And my wife at the time, and still does on occasion, will help me with images, because Pinterest has just been another referral stream of traffic. And so I just kind of noticed a common thread. So, and I've gone to older posts that were popular, have decent amount of traffic, where I recognized, that was a good post. Why couldn't I just repurpose that and turn that into a podcast? I already wrote about it. I could surely talk about it. Or if it's something that I want to turn into a video, I could do that as well. And so now, I have a lot of posts in my queue now that are done, and I'm like, oh, you know what? That's actually a good topic. I can talk about that as well. And so when I publish it, it's going to be a post. It's going to be a podcast, and if I have time, I'll also turn that into a video as well. So that's one way, just trying to get multiple uses so people can digest that content in whatever fashion that's convenient for them. The other way I do it now is there are a few places I write for. I write for Daily Finance, which is owned by AOL. I write for Forbes, and I also write for Credit.com, which syndicates their content a lot of different places. But all of those places allow me to republish my content on my site, after a certain period of time. So I kind of thought, wow, okay, so I could publish, and I don't do this for every single post, but if a post is something I feel that I can rank for SEO-wise, then it's going to live on my blog. If it's something that's more of a thought leadership, I don't really think I'm going to rank for it. I just want to get that idea out there, and it's probably a good marketing tool. I'll publish it on one of those other platforms, and then after I satisfy their requirement that I can republish on my blog, and I could also re-syndicate it on Huffington Post, and then on occasion, Business Insider will also re-syndicate that content. So I can turn one post and I can put it on 5 or 6 different major websites. And obviously they're going to get a lot more eyeballs than what my blog is going to get. So it's just another way to get visibility and get my content out there.
That's incredible, because really producing the initial idea and getting it on paper is the hard part, right? And then, turning it into a podcast and a video and syndicating, those are really the easy parts, but it just takes a little bit of time and effort.
Yeah. And I was really selfish in the beginning. I was like, wait, this is my content. I don't want to, give it to them. But I recognize, Jeff, okay, I might get a decent amount of traffic on my site, but I recognize that AOL or Forbes is probably going to get a little bit more traffic and more eyeballs than my site. So, why not give it to them and, have that carry over? Especially I can republish it on my site. So the strategy now, when I republish it on my site, then I do put a really snazzy Pinterest image, upload to Pinterest. So drive it back to my site in that capacity.
So you're hitting on a couple of technical topics that I'm not sure all of our listeners will be aware of. So when you say SEO, we're talking search engine optimization. So talk a little bit about, one, do you write for search engine optimization, which is basically Google search. And when someone types something into Google, you want to be what pops up, and you can use SEO methods to try to rank a little higher to be on the first page of Google. I mean, are you writing for SEO? Do you have someone that helps you with that?
When I first started, I absolutely did. And the first thing that I tried to rank for, actually the very first thing I tried to rank for was Jeff Rose. Because before I launched the blog, before I had a LinkedIn profile, when you Googled Jeff Rose, you found there's an actor in Georgia, there's a guy that makes polo shirts out of Florida, and there's a superintendent in Oregon. There wasn't Jeff Rose, the financial advisor. So all right. So, so when I started my sites, and LinkedIn and Facebook and all that stuff. So when you typed in Jeff Rose, you found me. But then I didn't recognize that if somebody wants to hire a financial advisor and they don't know me, they're probably not going to type in Jeff Rose.
Right.
So the first major keyword that I tried to rank for was financial planner Illinois. Because I thought if I could rank for financial planner Illinois, I could probably rank for financial planner Carbondale or financial planner Marion, some of the local smaller towns in my area. So that was the first keyword that I went after. And, I was initially told by some SEO marketing guru that was in this forum that doesn't exist anymore. He's like, you know what, it's like, I hate to burst your bubble, but you're never going to rank for that. Because you're in Illinois, you've got Chicago, you've got all these other big firms up in that area. You're small town USA, it ain't going to happen. And within 90 days, just through assistance from other bloggers that I had connected with online, they showed me how to do it. And I implemented the strategy. Took a lot of effort, but within 3 months, I was ranking in the top 10. Actually, I had 2 things ranking in the top 10 for Financial Planner Illinois.
That's incredible. That's so valuable.
It is. And my first success story, and I love this story because I launched the blog in July of 2008. I saw nothing from the blog until April of 2009. So you talk about, in blogging for, being insane, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting, different results. I mean, I did that, for that long with basically no success whatsoever. April 2009, got my first client, $2 million client who lived 15 minutes from me. And she found me because she Googled Certified Financial Planner Illinois. And who was the number one search? Bing, bing, bing. It was me. And otherwise, she didn't know who I was. She didn't know to Google Jeff Rose. That's what she knew to search, and that's what she found me.
That's so awesome. And that's, I think it's telling of kind of the next generation, and not necessarily just younger clients, but clients in general are asking Google questions. They're looking to Google to find folks. And I remember Bob Veras telling me one time that he was the one up in the mid-90s standing on stage yelling, "No one will ever use a website to evaluate a financial planner." And he likes to joke about that now, that he totally missed that prediction. And we still hear that no one's looking on Google for a financial advisor, and that is absolutely not true.
Not true at all. And I just landed a new client that lives about 45 minutes from me, and same thing. Had typed in, I think it was Financial Planner Illinois, and there I was. That just happened 2 months ago.
One of the things is, we're talking about a lot of different pieces that you can be working on. And I think it's really important that folks just get started and they just try some different things. And I always joke that in Montana, we say, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than your hiking buddy. And meaning we don't have to be the world's best marketer. You just have to be better than your competition. And the fact is, most financial advisors are not doing this stuff. They're not, and even if they are, they're not very good at it. I mean, you look at the average website of a financial advisor, and it's really bad. And if they do have a blog, it's got one post on it from 2007. And that, it really just takes a little bit of effort and a little bit of focus and some knowledge and research, and you really can start benefiting from it. And you're not going to see the benefits immediately, but it takes it's kind of a long play. But as that builds, then you really take a commanding lead there, and it would be hard to take Financial Planner Illinois from you at this point.
I think people, we all think about, if we want to buy something, if you're going to research online and buy something, one of the more common places people go nowadays is Amazon. Whether you buy it through Amazon or not, looking at all the different reviews, all the different experiences that people have with that product, is going to help you determine, whether you buy that product or not. I've used it all the time, and I think people are starting to do that, or through Facebook, ask people, hey, I'm going to buy this swing set or whatever, or want to sign up my kid for this dance class. What can you tell me about it? With a blog, that basically is, not so much reviews, but you're getting a taste of that, how that advisor works, how they think, who they are. And it just gives you some insight and kind of lowers that barrier of, entry is like, okay, I don't even, if you want to hire this person, I'm not saying it's going to close it 100%, but it just allows just a little bit of a peek into how that person is and whether you guys might be a good fit together.
It's such a good point because, I never wanted a client to show up and be surprised that I had a Southern accent. And some people hear it more than others, but I didn't want that to be a shock. I wanted them to know that I was young, that I had a Southern accent, and that I don't wear suits and ties to work. I wanted them to know that so that when they got to me, they kind of pre-sold on the concept. And same for you, and kind of going back to your blueprint, they're kind of pre-sold on what you're doing, and what you're offering.
I can't believe that here, like in the last few months, I've just stumbled across a few advisor websites where there is no picture of the advisor, anyone on their team.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, what year is it? How can you not have a picture of yourself? Go to Walmart, get some pictures done. Do a selfie.
And that would probably sell better than anything, is just a selfie of yourself, just to show a little personality.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I see one more lighthouse or compass on an advisor website, it's just amazing at how little differentiation there is out there. And like I said, how easy it is to kind of win the marketing game over a lot of other advisors.
And I have to say this, and I'm going to have to pick on maybe the more male advisor here, but most people don't care if you go to the Chamber of Commerce and you play golf in your spare time.
It's so true.
Hey, what do you do in your spare time? You hang out with your family, you play golf. Every single advisor puts that on their website. I don't know how many times I've seen that. Be different somehow. Tell me something else that's interesting about you that other people can relate to. Sorry, that's my end rant.
No, I love the rant because it's so true that advisors, we kind of fall into this rut of, we got to do things the way they've always been done and kind of, copying what's worked. And honestly, what worked 10 and 15 years ago doesn't work today. It's a different marketplace. And honestly, probably the way that you built it, 5 years ago or 4 or 5 years ago now isn't the way you would build it today. It constantly changes. And playing golf, that probably used to be a differentiator. So you've talked a little bit about, and you mentioned earlier that your blog has almost become a separate entity. So what may or may not have started as kind of a prospecting tool, and I think that's what a lot of advisors think of when they think of a blog, is it's going to drive traffic. It's really become its own business to the point that it's got income that you could shut down your RIA and you would still have an income. So you used to publish income reports, and I was looking through it, and I read 25 plus income sources, including affiliate links where you get paid when folks were clicking through or purchasing products that you were recommending, advertising on the site, consulting, speaking, freelance writing, probably a few that I missed. Talk a little bit about, as a new entrepreneur that's looking at starting a firm, looking at going solo, accustomed to having that paycheck, that reliable paycheck coming in, and all of a sudden they're on their own. How powerful, is having those multiple income streams to really growing your business?
It was something that I was oblivious to when I started the blog. The sole purpose was to drive new clients, get exposure. I mean, that was the whole point of the blog. And then as I started networking with other personal finance bloggers, just by seeing who's in the space and linking to them and commenting them and engaging them on Facebook or Twitter, I ended up befriending one who also was in the military like I was, and we just started talking, and I ended up learning that he was making more than I was through blogging than I was as being a financial advisor, and he'd been doing it for maybe 5 or 6 years. And I'm like, wait, what? You're actually making multiple like six figures on he had 2 websites at the time, and I was like, I just didn't get it. It was just a world that I was completely oblivious to. So he kind of showed me a few things, and the first thing I did was Google AdSense, which is if you have a website, you can sign up for a free AdSense account, and you just get the code and you copy and paste it into your site, and then you'll have these Google ads. And if you've been to any website, you'll know what you'll see ads. You might be oblivious to them now, but they're there. And I just put that on my site just to see what other extra revenue I could bring in. And within a few months, I made $100, which isn't nothing fantastic, but it still was this cool thing because just to make $100 for stuff that I was already doing and not making any money, at least it paid for some of the hosting costs and whatnot. And then as the traffic grew, $100 grew to $200, grew to $500, grew to $1,000. And I remember the highest payout, it was roughly between $4,000 or $5,000 for the month.
Wow!
Just off Google AdSense, and that's before any affiliate, before any other type of things that I was doing. And you talk about, $1,000 would have been huge. My wife was more than happy. That was like almost our mortgage payment. Actually, I think it was our mortgage payment at the time. So that was huge, right? But to go to $5,000, that was it. Just it was eye opening and recognizing, wow, okay, so this is, and that's what I alluded to in the beginning of the interview, where I really focused on that for a number of years because my thought process was I could grow this probably a whole lot faster and with a lot less headache and work than I could a financial advisor practice, because the old brokerage firm I worked with, there was a guy, the $1 million producer, that was working his butt off, and I knew how much work and service it took to grow a huge practice, and I didn't really ever aspire to do that at the time, and I just thought this was an easier way to do it. So that was several years ago, and how that has grown now. My goal has always been, well, not always, but here recently was I wanted to see if the online revenue could surpass the revenue from the practice. And that is not counting any new clients that I get from the blog, that feed into the practice. So I still count that as practice revenue. Online revenue is strictly affiliate advertising or affiliates, Google AdSense, banner advertising, anything like that, consulting. And it keeps getting close, but what ends up happening is my financial practice revenue keeps growing too. So it's a good problem to have. Both are growing, and they both have grown substantially over the last few years. But it is a separate entity where, like you said, if it ever got to the point that if I lost my practice, or if I ever wanted to sell the practice and just focus on the online, that's definitely something that's in the cards.
It's one thing to compete with somebody else. It's awesome when you can compete with yourself and keep losing because your income keeps going up.
And the common question I get from advisors is, well, because one of the bigger affiliates I have, I have a few of the online brokers, and like, well, aren't you short? You're cutting yourself because instead of them working with you, they're going to go to Scottrade or E-Trade or whatever. And I'm like, if somebody wants to work with me, they're going to work with me. But I mentioned for the young investor that wants to start a Roth IRA and they don't know how to get started, and like, hey, well, here's some reviews. You can read about Scottrade, you can read about Betterment, you can read about some of these other online platforms that exist, and that you can decide what's going to be best for you. And that's the way I always position it for people.
And now it's probably important to know, because it's probably a question that listeners will have, is that because of the affiliates, and I know you have the life insurance website as well, because of the affiliates, that's why you can't call yourself fee only, right? And technically, according to the CFP board, you would be labeled as fee and commission because you're getting commissions. And I'm not sure the CFP board has ruled specifically on affiliate links, but I could imagine if you're recommending a financial product and you get an affiliate commission whenever they utilize it, it probably would go against the definition of fee only.
I would assume so, and that's why I've always called myself fee based, but I'm now recognizing that description is becoming not the description to use. So I guess yes, I'm fee and commission. I've never held myself to be out fee only because I know a lot of the fee only, that community would not like that about me. So I'm more than happy to call myself fee and commission.
Sure, and it's probably a gray area, honestly, and kind of when the initial definitions of fee only and commission only and fee and commission were written, they didn't think about affiliate links on a website. They were just thinking about you selling an insurance product to your client.
Right.
But I don't think they thought through what happens when you write a review of a product and it's an honest review that has pros and cons, and you just happen to get paid whenever they purchase it through you. Is that really you recommending a product and being biased? I don't know. It'd be an interesting discussion to have with the board.
I know for me personally, the fact that I'm not fee only, 100% fee only, has never hurt me as far as losing a client because of that. So if that was an issue, I would probably look at it more closer, but it hasn't been. So
sure. And one of the things, you talk about this is a whole different world for most advisors, right? We talk blogging and Google AdSense and all of that sort of thing. And so, you're a frequent speaker at FinCon, correct?
Yeah, I think I've actually spoke every year except the first.
Oh, wow. So you probably have spoken at more than anybody else.
Maybe, I don't know.
We should ask PT Taylor or PT Money, Philip Taylor, who's the owner of FinCon, if you have the record for most presentations. But listeners may be interested to know just that FinCon is the financial bloggers conference essentially, and I think the next one is coming up in September down in Charlotte, and they normally have 500 to 700 attendees that come, tons of financial bloggers, podcasters, members of the media, freelance writers, just a really different group, but folks that are focused on personal finance. And it's a great place to come learn a lot of the information that you're sharing that you had to learn from a friend because FinCon didn't exist yet, didn't really have a central resource.
Right.
But one of the exciting things at FinCon this year is it'll be the first year that they have had the Financial Advisor Blogging and Social Media Symposium, which is basically a track of content specifically for financial advisors. And it won't speak as much to some of these topics, but it will really hone in on content marketing using video and Pinterest and podcasts and all of that sort of things. And you're going to be speaking during that track. So if listeners are interested in coming out for that, they can get a chance to hear you speak on content marketing and blogging for advisors.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about that because I know that the very first year, I think there was only, if I had to guess, 5 financial advisors in attendance. Very first FinCon. I'm trying to remember who was there, but yeah, there wasn't a lot at all. And mostly they were just regular bloggers. And then the next year you saw more and more and more. And then there have been guys like Tim Maurer has been there. Obviously you've been there. There's just a lot of bigger names have been there, and wealth management firms, guys working for the bigger broker dealers. I mean, it's been cool to see the evolution of FinCon and to have that many advisors now interested, because that's the one thing I've recognized is that you're not gonna, if you want to learn social media, you're probably let's say you work for a broker dealer. I mean, you're not going to go. I'm not going to pick on anybody, but Actually, I will. I'll pick on Edward Jones. So you're not going to go to Edward Jones and like ask help how to use social media marketing. Well, one, they don't do it, but they haven't done it, so they can't really give you any guidance other than the generic stuff you can read online anywhere else. Whereas talking to a blogger who has been blogging and knows Twitter and knows Facebook and how they've been able to get traffic to their site, I mean, you can learn a lot and apply that. And that's basically what I've done with my site. Is I've seen what's worked for other bloggers and just took that and put my spin on it. And, it has proved to be successful.
It's such a good point because the FinCon community is really a big group of people that make a lot of money online. This is what they do for a living. And as advisors, we're kind of talking about doing it to help generate a little bit of traffic, a few extra clients. These folks live and die by their blog. And so they just have so much to teach. And XY Planning Network was a sponsor last year, will be a sponsor this year as well, just hanging out because I think advisors have so much to learn from the blogging and freelance writing community. And we'll actually be hosting our conference just before FinCon. So that'll be a really exciting integration. So as we're kind of wrapping things up, I was reading through your bio on your website, and it said that you deadlift over 500 pounds. You're very known, or at least in my mind, as the CrossFit guy. Because they say the number one rule of CrossFit is never stop talking about CrossFit. And so, and I remember there being a pull-up competition at FinCon, maybe 2012 or 2013. So you spend, enough time to keep in shape and exercise. You're always posting adorable pictures of your family because you have just such an awesome, relationship there. And it looks like you spend a lot of time with your family. So how do you find the time, or should I say make the time to balance all of these different competing interests, all the work, with your RA and all the blogging and all the content, the speaking, your family, exercise? How do you balance everything?
I do have a lot of VAs that will help with, the podcast, for example. Like I don't do any of the editing there. I hired the editor for the blog. I do have a guy that also helps with SEO and helps with manage the affiliate revenue or the affiliates, manage anything that goes along with that. With the practice, not just having staff, but also investing time into building processes that remove me from having to do a lot of the things that I used to do. And a lot of this came from Strategic Coach. I've been a Strategic Coach client for over 4 years now, and I've drank the Kool-Aid, and I'm happy to pass it around and have everybody else get a sip. But it just basically helped me recognize, what are the things that I'm doing that I don't need to be doing. And once you figure out a lot of the big things, I'll give you one little minor thing is all my email was, all my firm, Alliance Wealth Management email was coming to me. And now every time I get an email, it's automatically CC'd to my office manager. And then, she basically responds. That way I see it, but I don't have to respond. She responds, unless it's something I have to respond to. But typically that's, maybe 1 out of 20 times. And just like that one little task saves me so much time to have to worry about having to respond to that or having to forward that to her so she can respond to it. And that's just one example, but I do that constantly. I'm constantly evaluating, almost on a daily basis, what are things that I'm doing that I don't need to be doing? And with my new advisor now, I used to be the one that was delivering the financial plan. That's his role now. He's the one that does that. I was the one doing the free chats. I'm having him do more of those now, or the discovery call, which is part of our process. So I keep looking at ways that how can I remove myself, from that equation and either outsource it or delegate it to another team member.
Yeah, learning how to delegate and outsource, it's really hard. It sounds easy, but we just get in this kind of rut of doing things the way we've always done it. And when you start a firm, you are the person that does it all, from all of the client work to cleaning the toilets and everything in between. And so as you grow, you can really start outsourcing and leveraging other people's expertise.
I don't like building processes. That's not one of my strengths. And it took a lot of time and energy and effort. And, I love blogging and, doing the financial planning side, but building processes is not exciting for me, but I recognize that I have to do it. So, now we have our firm manual that basically has all these different steps for all these different processes on how we do things. So that way, if I ever lose a team member, we've got I call it like the Lego manual, the Lego instruction guide. Like, all right, this is how you do it. Here's a step-by-step tutorial that has screenshots and everything for how to make a deposit, how to open an account, how to transfer money, how to do this, how we bring on new clients, how we maintain and service existing clients. It's all in this manual.
So now we need to talk you into launching a course that shows advisors how to do that, because that would be so valuable to see.
Yeah, and it's still. It's a work in process, and it'll always be a work in process. That's the thing I think that a lot of us get hung up on, that we have to create the perfect thing. But if anybody uses like a CRM, like especially like Redtail that has the workflow, once you start trying to do a workflow, you start realizing all the little things that come up. Should the client, do they need online access to have email or whatever? There's so many little things that come up, but until you actually take the time and just write step by step how you do things, it's never going to get, you're always going to be you're going to be the bottleneck of being productive in whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So I'm trying to prevent myself from being the bottleneck.
That's so awesome. It's such good advice. So one last question, and that is if you could go back and tell yourself something, just kind of one thing that you wish you had known when you were launching your firm, what do you think that one thing, that one piece of advice would have been?
We talked about the whole niche, and I definitely think a niche is good for people. I even to this day, I don't feel like I have that niche, but the one thing that has shown me how extremely valuable is having that defined, unique process, and how you do what you do. Before that, I was just another advisor doing financial planning. Not another advisor, but didn't have that clearly defined process to walk people through. And ever since I created that has been a game changer for us, because not only do you have the process, but in that process, each step along that process, you can now start delegating tasks to your team members to do what they need to do. And it removes me having to, if somebody gets an inquiry to me, I'd always email them and kind of go back and forth with it. Now it's not me, it's my office manager. She's the one that has the direct, point of contact and schedules that free chat. And then I have my advisor go and do the work. And so that's probably one thing, is what is it that you do that makes you different? Whether it's a niche or it's just your process, how do you do it, and clearly articulate exactly what you do and how you do it.
That's such great advice. And it's something that's so hard, and yet once you get it done and you can really find that piece, it's so valuable. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show today. This has been such great information for listeners. So I know that they're going to have a lot of questions for you, but thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom and expertise.
Yeah, it's been fun. Enjoyed it.
All right. Well, thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed today's interview with Jeff. There's so many valuable lessons to be learned from him, especially when it comes to using a blog to leverage and grow your financial planning firm. So you can check out all of the resources that we mentioned during the show at xyplanningnetwork.com/4. Now, before we go, I want to give another quick shout out to our launch week sponsor, Low Load Insurance Services. I have personally worked with Low Load for over 4 years now, and have to say they're an incredibly valuable member to your financial planning team. As fee-only advisors, we simply can't transact insurance on behalf of our clients, and telling clients to go shop for coverage with local insurance agents, simply isn't ideal. So I have found that working with LLIS allows me to provide a much higher level of service in relation to insurance planning than I could provide on my own, since they have a growing team of over 16 insurance specialists that know the ins and outs of the industry. If you'd like to learn more, go to LLIS.com. You can check out a link to their website in the show notes at XYPlanningnetwork.com/4. And also be sure to tune in for episode 5 for an in-depth interview with Mark Maurer, the CEO of LLIS. Thanks again so much for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.